Hi and welcome to Food for Thoughts with Inka. Today I want to share with you my thoughts on the fairy tale Snow White. One morning I woke up and I just couldn't stop thinking about this fairy tale. So I decided to dig deeper into it and I found out the messages are not only about good and evil. There is some deeper message behind it as well. So I decided to write an article about it, and I want to share with you my article here from my notes. The 5 Faces of the Queen, Narcissism. To understand the deeper meaning of the story, we have to look past the surface and analyze the Queen. Her behavior gives us 5 perfect descriptions of how narcissism works in real life. Number 1. The heart of the story lies in one simple question. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? As a child, I thought this was a question about beauty. But today I see it in a different light. I think it is a question about identity, greed, power hunger, and the absolute need for constant validation. What psychologists call the narcissistic supply. The Queen cannot judge her own worth from within. She depends entirely on what the mirror reflects back to her. Number 2. The moment Snow White grows up and becomes beautiful, the Queen cannot handle the competition. Instead of loving her, she becomes intensely jealous and tries to destroy her. Narcissistic parents or figures often see those under them, especially their own children, as competitors rather than independent human beings. And this is beyond sad. If the child does well, gains attention or success, the narcissist feels threatened and immediately goes to attack. Number 3. The Queen commands the huntsman to take Snow White into the forest, murder her, and return with her heart cut out and placed inside a box. This shows a complete and terrifying lack of empathy. A narcissist will stop at nothing to eliminate or destroy anyone who threatens their fragile ego. They literally want to see the heart or the live joy dragged out of the victim so they can feel like they won. This is just really hard to read, but this is how it is. Number 4. The Queen transforms herself, disguised her true identity as a harmless, kind old woman, to offer Snow White a beautiful apple that looks perfect from the outside, but is deadly poisoned within. This is a perfect description of gaslighting and false charm. Narcissists often present themselves as victims or helpers, offering gifts, affection, or false promises. But underneath the surface, there is emotional portion designed to control you, make you drop your guard, or break you down. Very, very dangerous. Number 5. The Queen controls the story. She forces Snow White to run away and hide in the woods like a criminal, while making the entire kingdom believe that she, the Queen, is the righteous, good leader. This is the classic smear campaign. The narcissist completely flips reality. They target your reputation, tell lies to others, and twist the story so that you look like the bad person, while they play the role of the innocent victim or the hero. So, now we can move from this fairy tale and look at modern global politics, where figures like Trump dominate the headlines, or even at our own communities closer to home. We see this exact same 5 patterns repeating themselves. The queen is not really asking who is the most beautiful. She is asking whether she is still the most important person in the room. Whether she is still the one everyone admires. Her sense of worth depends entirely on what the mirror reflects back to her and her sense of power. This is a tragedy of narcissism. For leaders who are trapped in this way of relating to themselves, unfortunately, truth becomes secondary. We have seen that time and time again through history and today. The well-being of others becomes secondary. The only thing that truly matters is protecting the image they have created of themselves. And if reality or the news begin to challenge that carefully constructed image, the problem is no longer reality. The problem becomes the person holding up the mirror, the one who tells the truth or challenges the narcissist. And we have seen this pattern again and again. Critics are ridiculed, journalists are attacked, opponents are publicly humiliated or dismissed. The messenger becomes the enemy because the truth they carry threatens the image they must protect. One of the defining characteristics of narcissism is an inability to face one's own vulnerability. Instead of looking inward, insecurity is projected outward. Snow White becomes the target simply because she exists. She has done nothing wrong. Her only crime is that her presence exposes something the queen cannot bear to see, her own weakness, her hunger for validation. Because if she isn't the most beautiful, she is nothing. Her value was never as secure as she believed. We see the same pattern today when leaders feel threatened. It is often easier to blame, for example, immigrants, political opponents, journalists, minorities, or anyone who can carry the weight of their own fear and insecurity. The scapegoat changes, but the pattern does not, absolutely not. So, another part of the story, the 7 dwarfs. They are easy to overlook, but I see them as a representation of the rest of us. Ordinary people trying to build a peaceful life in the shadow of power. What strikes me the most about the fairy tale is not only the queen's cruelty, but how powerless everyone else seems to feel. And we see that today. People are just completely disconnected and numb about what is happening. They know about the poisoned apple exists, they know something is deeply wrong, yet no one quite knows how to stop it. Some remain silent, others adapt, still others hope it will simply pass. Meanwhile, the damage continues. Perhaps that is why this fairy tale still feels so relevant. It is not only the story of an evil queen, it is the story of a society struggling to respond to people who have become so consumed by their own reflection that they can no longer truly see others as human beings. But for me, the message of the story is in some ways hopeful. To survive domination and abuse of power, we have to grow beyond naive innocence, unfortunately, or even numbness and denial, and develop the courage to recognize what is truly right and what is truly wrong and stand by it. Easier said than done, but it is so important. I believe the strongest way to resist this kind of leadership is not through hatred, absolutely not, but through clarity. As individuals and as society, we must never stop protecting our capacity to think critically. That is so important, to defend the truth and to allow healthy criticism to be heard. I think that so many things in the world would change if we would teach critical thinking and compassion early in school. I think that would change so much. And it is so important to understand that when critical voices are silenced, the moment people become afraid to point out what is wrong or what could be better, we are moving towards a very dangerous ground. So I would say in the end, Snow White reminds us that narcissism and self-glorification may dominate for a time, but they are never the final word. It is truth, compassion, integrity, and ordinary human goodness that eventually causes the mirror to crack and the poison to lose its power. It might take a long time, but in the end, the truth wins. At least I believe so. And that does not mean the journey is easy. Standing up to those forces often comes at a great cost. We have seen that many times. Sometimes it even seems as though what is good must first be broken before it can prevail, unfortunately. Perhaps that is why this old fairy tale has survived for centuries. It reminds us that the greatest dangers is not the mirror itself, but forgetting what mirrors are for. They are meant to help us see ourselves more clearly, not to tell us we are greater than everyone else. The moment we stop seeking truth and begin seeking only admiration, we risk becoming the queen without ever noticing it. And we don't want to be there. Absolutely not. And perhaps it has always been a story at its core about power, truth, and the courage to see clearly and stand for what is right. And it's just so important. And I think that would be my absolute message from the story, is to stand up for the truth no matter what, and never accept gaslighting, manipulations and lies and dishonesty. Just call it for what it is. It is so important, and to be conscious about that kind of behaviors and do not accept it in any form, in any situation. I mean, that can be at work, in relationships, or as I said, world leaders, in fairy tales, whatever. Never accept it. So this was my thought about Snow White. I would love to know what you think. Have you ever looked at an old fairy tale and suddenly realized it was saying something completely different from what you thought as a child? I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you, and bye until next.